Your ship has crashed. Planet 4546b, a desolate wasteland of water, and you stranded right in the middle of it on a small island full of life. Your chances of rescue? Well, let's just say abysmal. But then, out of nowhere, the small LED on your radio lights up. A ship. Another ship has detected your signal and is coming closer, a potential sign of rescue. Every passing day, they get nearer and nearer to your position, until finally, you can see them in the sky. Escape is within your grasp. You're only seconds away from being rescued. But then, disaster strikes, and that chance is once again ripped straight from within your hands. That is the story of a ship called Sunbeam within Subnautica, yet another vessel that met its unfortunate end on planet 4546b, and today I'll be telling you everything we know about it. I'll touch up on what we know about their origins, about the ship itself, and about its crew, and finally at the end, we'll also talk about what this means for the structure of trans governments and things happening outside of planet 4546b. So without any further ado, put on your diving gear, get ready to traverse some islands, and let's delve into the lore of Subnautica one more time. Now, as we all know, planet 4546b has quite the unfortunate record when it comes to vessels landing on it, but Sunbeam did not have to suffer the same fate. In fact, this small charter flight was not headed for the planet at all. The only reason they came is because they happened to intersect a distress signal sent by the Aurora, and apparently, according to the captain, they are bound by law to answer that distress signal, probably showing us a bit of what is going on behind the backs of trans governments, because as it stands, the Sunbeam was not even an Alteran ship. I mean, let me say that again. The ship itself is clearly of Alteran design, even bearing an Alteran logo at the bottom. The crew, however, are not exactly cut from the same cloth. In one of the messages that you receive from them, they introduce themselves as being from a little trans government on the far side of Andromeda, clearly stating that they are not a part of Altera. However, based on some of the other messages, it is very clear that they are used to dealing with members of our trans government, or presumably at least utilizing their technologies, as in their very first message, they state, "These Alteran ships, they run low on engine grease, they send an SOS, you offer to help, and they don't pick up." Presumably saying that this is not the first time something like this has happened to them, or at least that they have some experience with piloting or rescuing Alteran ships. But the Sunbeam is not a rescue vessel. We are not exactly sure what they do, even though they do mention at one point, quoting, "Damn charter's gonna have us wasting our profit margin running errands for Altera," perhaps giving us some insight into what the original purpose of this vessel was from its own trans government. But saying that the Sunbeam was not fit to rescue something like the Aurora is a major understatement. In fact, the crew of the ship is only 6 people strong, out of which we only really know the name of one, that being Captain Avery Quinn, the person that you receive all of your messages from throughout the game. His choice to come and help out, whether willing or bound by law, is certainly what cost him and his crew their eventual lives. But I'm not gonna dwell on that for too long, because we will come back to that specific point at the end of the video. For now, let's talk about Avery Quinn, the captain of Sunbeam. Very little is known about who this person actually is. I mean, clearly he is a trained captain, even mentioning the fact that he had spent some time flying ships in simulators and doing test landings. In one particular message he even remarks, quote, "What else can I say? The only time I parked a rig this big on a rock that small was in VR and I blew it." So maybe we're getting a bit of a hint towards how good he actually is. But nevertheless, he sounds like a reasonable man and someone who is going to do their absolute best to help the situation out. Despite his best efforts, however, they could not be prepared for what they found when they finally arrived to planet 4546b. But let's put this into a timeline to start us off. Throughout the game, you receive 4 core messages from them, one on day 9, one on day 13, one on day 19, and the last one on day 21. These messages are basically just informing you about their status on approach to 4546b. After this point, you have to wait out the timer until they supposedly align to the planet's orbit, and then you get one last message as they approach the quarantine enforcement platform. If you play the game the way 90% of players do, upon approach they will realize that the giant alien weapon is aiming at them, but it will be too late for them to do anything about it, and the ship will get blown into pieces, debris falling from the sky. Unfortunately, you will never be able to actually find it because it presumably falls and sinks into the depths of the crater edge. However, this does not have to be. You see, there is a very niche way you can actually save the entire crew of Sunbeam. If you manage to shut the weapon down before Sunbeam arrives, there's actually a unique line of dialogue that will play out of your radio, informing you that due to a debris field, their landing is unfortunately not going to be possible. I even tested it myself, and here you can see the footage. Okay, not exactly that one, not sure what went down there, but in this one, I actually managed to get it to work.
Aurora survivors, this is trading ship Sunbeam. We've tracked your distress signal, but your ships left a substantial debris field up in orbit, and we can't attempt a landing. We're gonna have to head home. We'll send our data to Altera as soon as we can. Hold on in there. Sunbeam out.
So technically speaking, if you play your cards right, the crew of the Sunbeam might live to see another day. Now, technically speaking, that is everything we know about the Sunbeam. I mean, there really isn't that much to say. However, there are a few small things we can draw from this just before this video finishes off. Number one, it is very clear that other trans governments in the galaxy are used to dealing with Altera. This should come as no surprise given that Altera is the biggest trans government, but it just once again solidifies how it stands within the universe and how the other, presumably much smaller trans governments, go as far as to use a lot of their technology simply because they are seemingly number one on the market. Even more interestingly though, in my opinion, the concept of you being able to save the Sunbeam introduces the problem of canonicity into Subnautica. See, before this, I think it's pretty clear that everything that happens in the first game is canon the way it happens. But now, we are, for the first time I believe, introduced to the concept where I'm not sure which fate of the Sunbeam is going to be canon for Below Zero. Now, granted, maybe it doesn't matter at all and this ship will never come back out again, but in case it does, it will definitely be interesting to see how it pulls into Below Zero, and perhaps even more interestingly, I'm looking forward to seeing whether Below Zero implements this maybe even further, giving you some minor choices that you can do during the game so that your outcome of the game might actually end up being a bit different based on the choices you made. But of course, with that, we just have to wait and see until Below Zero is finished further. But in the meanwhile, that takes us to the end of the video, so I hope you guys enjoyed and have learned at least a little bit more about the fascinating world of Subnautica and Planet 4546b. If you enjoyed this video, maybe consider leaving a like, commenting, or subscribing, and if there's anything that I missed or a theory of your own that you'd like to cover about the Sunbeam, make sure to let me know down in the comments as well. I would very much like to read them. Now with that, I'm gonna wish you all a beautiful rest of today, and I'll see you all in whatever next video I make. Bye bye.